Okay, so my father thought it bloody queer is another one of these Book of Matches poems, like Mice and Snakes and Mother Any Distance. All three of them are in the same anthology of collection, rather, of Armitage's poetry, and like the other two, are short and can be read in the time that it takes a match to burn down. And that idea of a short poem that burns quite brightly and that captures a moment or a feeling in quite a lot of detail. So let's read it through. My father thought it bloody queer the day I rolled home with a ring of silver in my ear, half hidden by a mop of hair. You've lost your head. If that's how easily you're led, you should have had it through your nose instead. And even then I hadn't had the nerve to numb the lobe with ice, then drive a needle through the skin, then wear a safety pin. It took a jeweller's gun to pierce the flesh, and then a friend to thread a sleeper in, and where it slept the hole became a sore, became a wound, and wept. At 29 it comes as no surprise to hear my own voice breaking like a tear, released like water, cried from way back in the spiral of the ear. If I were you, I'd take it out and leave it out next year. Okay, so as in the last two poems, in the previous two in this collection, it's about parents and children. And in the same way as Mice and Snakes, it's about a father and a son. And it's about how the father's impression of the son influences him as he gets older. How his reaction to the pierced ear, is something which has stayed with the poet, and even as an adult, he can hear himself saying the same things to his own son. So let's look at the first stanza. My father thought it bloody queer the day I rolled home with a ring of silver in my ear, half hidden by a mop of hair. You've lost your head. If that's how easily you're led, you should have had it through your nose instead. So the son comes home, he's had his ear pierced, and the father has one of those sort of typical old man reactions, calls it bloody queer. And that's interesting because the word queer, nowadays, it has different connotations, but at the time it just meant strange, odd, weird. And the word bloody there, it's that kind of northern type of speech. That's bloody queer, that. You can imagine that the northerner, Simon Armitage is a northerner, and you can imagine his father saying, God, that's bloody queer, that. In the way that sort of the older generation might respond to seeing a man with his ear pierced. And then he goes on to say, you've lost your head. If that's how easily you're led, you should have had it through your nose. Obviously the ring through the nose would be a bull. And it seems that the father's referring to the son as someone who's so easily led he may as well be led around with a ring through his nose rather than a ring through his ear. So this really kind of contradicts the reason why the narrator would have had the ear pierced in the first place, because we tend to do things like pierce our ears or have tattoos to assert our individuality, to kind of set ourselves apart from others, to say, you know, I'm an individual and I've made the decision to pierce or to have a tattoo. But actually the father turns it right on its head by calling him easily led, as if he's a sheep, someone who's just doing what everyone else is doing. So he's obviously very good at bursting the narrator's bubble, at deflating him. And then this second stanza here, he further deflates the narrator, because he doesn't even have the nerve to do it kind of hardcore. You know, he does it by going to a jeweller and getting a jeweller to do it and getting his friend to put the sleeper in. And even then it goes wrong, and the ear, the piercing, infects and becomes a wound. And then this last stanza, we get him now in the present day, and at 29 he's not surprised when he hears his own voice sounding just like his father's. If I were you, I'd take it out and leave it out next year. And at the end there we get the little bit in italics, which is kind of him speaking to someone else. So right at the end he can hear himself sounding just like his own father, and telling this whoever it is, maybe the son, to take out the sleeper. We'll have a look at a little bit more detail in the next podcast.